APR for 72 months plus $1,500 purchase cash on 2026 Sierra 1500 models. We are professional grade.
NBC4 News at 6 starts with breaking news.
We are following breaking news out of Boyle Heights, where we learned within the past 30 minutes that Lineage Logistics will miss the cleanup deadline for its warehouse gutted by a fire in June.
More than 85 million pounds of food was left rotting inside that warehouse, and the city gave the company 45 days to clean it all up. That deadline was set to expire tomorrow.
NBC4's Keenan Willard is live in Boyle Heights. And Keenan, what does this mean for the community?
Well, another source of frustration is what we're already hearing from people. They were already set to come out here to the Costello Rec Center for a public meeting. City leaders talking to people in this area who live just in some cases a few blocks away from the Lineage warehouse about the ongoing emergency response. But now some of them in the last few minutes are looking at their phones here, talking to each other and hearing this latest update from the mayor's office about what looks to be the company not meeting its deadline set by the city to finish the cleanup at the warehouse. You can see it on your screen here. This is the message the Mayor Karen Bass put on social media in the last hour. That message saying Lineage has announced that it will miss the cleanup deadline. That is unacceptable. I will use every resource at my disposal to demand compliance and hold Lineage accountable. Now, the mayor's office had set a 45-day deadline for Lineage to finish clearing out more than 85 million pounds of rotting food that was left inside that building after it was destroyed by fire starting on June 17th. Now, neighbors here in Boyle Heights saying that rotting food created a strong odor that has left them feeling sick and unable to spend time outdoors, and even attracted flies and rats to their neighborhood. In recent weeks, Lineage had said the company would be meeting the city's deadline, and a tracker on its website says as of yesterday, 93% of the food waste at the warehouse had been removed. In this community meeting here, multiple city leaders are set to talk to people living around the warehouse site cleanup effort. Here with children returning to school this week, their community still suffering. Any delay in the cleanup process to them is unacceptable.
It stinks out there. All these flies are pooperless. My mom said, I'm not going there no more. You see all the flies inside the store. In the little restaurant, Chinese restaurant right there, all the flies are in there. It's unfair. We're human beings. Just because we don't have a lot of funds and we're not rich, we can't hire lawyers to come and fight for us. They shouldn't do this to us. They shouldn't.
Guys, we're expecting to hear even more reaction from people and direct messages to city leaders on the part of the Boyle Heights community during that public meeting, which is set to begin at 6 on the dot here. So a lot more coming your way in the next few hours as we track the reaction here in the community to that announcement from Mayor Bass. For the moment, back to you.
And Keenan, do we know what Lineage is saying about the deadline?
Well, it's a good question, and we've been trying to get actually a response from the company to just the state of the cleanup process since this morning. We've been tracking day by day as that percentage mark has creeped upwards of 90% in terms of the cleanup effort. We did not get a response from Lineage earlier in the day when we were just asking for the latest status of the cleanup percentage as of today, this Thursday. But now, as we move forward after this announcement from Mayor Bass, I reached back out to Lineage and asked if they had a response to the mayor's statement. Where did the company announce that it was not going to be meeting the deadline? And also, do they have a response to members of the community here who have serious complaints and frustrations that they're expressing about the company not meeting the deadline? We are waiting to hear back from the company, and we'll update as soon as we get a response from Lineage tonight. For the moment, from Boyle Heights, Keenan Willard, NBC4 News.
Yeah, an ongoing situation there. Keenan, thank you so much for that update. Meantime, we're following more breaking news, this time in the retrial of the man accused of intentionally setting the Palisades fire. Moments ago, prosecutors announced revised charges against Jonathan Rinderknecht. NBC4's Eric Leonard has more on the charges and what it could mean for the case. Eric.
Yeah, this is something of an expected update to the criminal case that Jonathan Rinderknecht will face at this second trial. You'll remember the first trial ended with a mistrial in June. The couple of jurors that we heard from said they were not convinced that prosecutors had shown sufficient evidence to convict on any of the three charges. So prosecutors have filed a superseding indictment, a revision of the charges, ahead of a status conference in the case that was set for next Wednesday. And it does a couple of things that are significant. For one, it drops one of the three counts. Count 3 is gone. That was a federal charge that alleged wording of the federal criminal charge is timber set afire that was related to the damage that had been caused by the Palisades fire. That's gone. The remaining two counts are somewhat different. In the first trial, count 1, which sometimes was referred to as the ignition charge, was the allegation that Jonathan Rinderknecht had caused the Palisades fire by means of igniting the first of the two fires called the Lackman fire. And during the trial, the prosecution tried to convince jurors that this was all one big fire. You'll remember the allegation against Rinderknecht is that he lit, allegedly, the first fire, the Lackman fire, burned January 1st and was quickly put out. But experts from the ATF testified it smoldered underground and then reignited in those enormous winds on January 7th, causing the Palisades fire. Well, now the count 1 only focuses on the Lackman fire, a fire that the feds didn't even want to refer to by name during the first trial. Again, they wanted these two fires to be seen by the jurors as one single event. And so that leaves count 2 now to be entirely the damage and destruction caused by the Palisades fire. It remains to be seen how the prosecution will adjust its presentation of the evidence. Our understanding is it's going to be much of the same information, but oftentimes after a first trial, and you see the response from the jury, the prosecution and the defense, for that matter, may revise or refine the way they present this material to the jurors, hoping, of course, for a different outcome. That retrial scheduled to begin in September, but anything could happen at this hearing next week now that there's a different set of charges that they want to proceed with.
Eric, thank you so much. Our other top story tonight, local wildfire survivors are sounding an alarm over a proposal they say could shield utility companies from the full cost of future fires.
NBC4's Investigates first brought you the story last week after learning the proposed legislation could limit how much utilities are required to pay, even if their equipment is to blame for sparking a wildfire. NBC4's Lolita Lopez joins live here in studio with more. Lolita.
Yes, this is important because for weeks, people we have spoken with say Governor Newsom had been negotiating new proposals that would put California's electric utilities ahead of their needs.
There had been indications for weeks that new proposed legislation about fire recovery in Altadena and the Palisades was going to be presented before the end of this current legislative session. This proposal is the first we've seen in writing. Earlier this month, LA County fire investigators determined it was Southern California Edison's equipment that started the Eaton fire in Altadena. According to the new proposal, Governor Gavin Newsom says CEOs of utility companies like Edison should forfeit bonuses if their companies are found to have caused a fire. In a statement to NBC4, the governor's office said, in part, this does not affect Eaton fire survivors. The reforms apply only to future fires. That has been true from the outset, and it is a non-negotiable part of the proposal. The goal of this proposal is to ensure the victims of future utility-sparked fires have access to the funds they need to recover. This proposal does not limit survivor economic damages in any way. However, wildfire survivor advocates say this proposal does not address what kind of financial responsibility utilities should bear after a fire.
The governor himself refuses to come out and publicly present this bill. They refuse to release the language of the bill.
Joy from Every Fire Survivors Network says she recently met with the governor's office, says it appears upcoming legislation would limit utilities' liabilities, describing this scenario.
The entire concept of pain and suffering or non-economic damages here, under the governor's proposal, will be limited just to the stress of running away that night if you happen to still be home when the fire came, and later your home burned down. In other words, they are absolving these three companies for all liability for the lifelong trauma.
Los Angeles County Supervisor Catherine Barger sent a letter to Governor Newsom yesterday saying, in part, I respectfully ask that survivors be the central focus of any proposal, adding, I also ask that any future legislative proposals ensure survivors receive the full financial resources necessary to recover and rebuild.
Yeah, and the governor's office did say that the proposal would limit claims by corporations so survivors could get more recovery funds. To that end, the group Wildfire Victims First, which includes utility companies, tells NBC4 hedge funds, insurance companies, and trial lawyers should not be getting priority before victims, as they say is happening in the current system. Lolita Lopez, NBC4 News.
Nearly $800,000 for this fence at a library in downtown Long Beach as the city proposes library